Hey, it's Marley, and I'm here to present my October TBR. Sorry if I'm a little sweaty, my blood sugar has been low, which makes me sweaty and shaky, but I really wanted to fit in filming this video today. Fall and Halloween time is like my favorite time of year, so I'm so excited to talk about all the books that I plan to read in the month of October. I have a few books that are set, and then the rest of the month I do want to mood read a little bit, but I have a bunch of books that I want to try to get to within that mood reading. So without further ado, let's first talk about the 3 books I want to read for my monthly reading vlog that I always do. The theme for this vlog is pretty obvious, so I'm just gonna say I'm going to be reading some witchy book recommendations. I think last year I read like dark academia books. I always try and pick a certain theme for kind of my October reading vlog that relates to the spookiness of Halloween. So this year it is witches. That being said, a couple of the witch books I picked, or maybe all of them, are not gonna be that scary. First of all, we have The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I always forget the title. And this is by Sangu Mandanna. This is quite the popular and beloved book here on BookTube, so I'm really excited to finally get to it. I think it's more of a cozy fantasy type of book where we have a character who is a witch, but in this world, I guess you are not obviously supposed to share that you're a witch with people, and witches are also not supposed to group together. So this girl is going about her life, making videos on YouTube where she's pretending to be a witch, even though she actually is one. And then she ends up getting recruited to come teach a bunch of witches, I guess, about how to control their magic and stuff like that. I guess it's gonna be a cozy little time of her teaching these kids about being a witch, and there's gonna be a bunch of fun little characters she's interacting at this school setting. She's gonna have a love interest, of course, and it sounds like it's just gonna be a very fun time. Not super spooky, but you know, I'm gonna read this right at the beginning of the month so it can ease me into the Halloween vibe. Another witch book that I want to read is Cackle by Rachel Harrison. I think this is described as a cozy horror as well, so I guess not too scary, but this seems to be about a character living in this small kind of quaint little town, and then it seems like one of the other townspeople, one of these women, might be a witch based on some of her behavior. And that's all I really remember from the synopsis, but I am dying to check out Rachel Harrison's work. She's another author I just hear so much about on BookTube from a lot of the booktubers that I personally watch and trust. So I'm really excited to read this first book from her and see if I like her writing as well. The last witch book I'm going to read is the Ex Hex by Erin Sterling. I think this is a series, so I'll have to see if I want to continue, but this is a little witchy romance book. I think it's about this character who puts a hex on her ex, as you can imagine. She just kind of goes about her life. I don't think she even really thinks that it worked or anything like that. But then years later, I think her ex comes back to the town, she bumps into him again, and she finds that the hex has been working. He does seem to be cursed. The rest of the story just goes from there. Maybe she's trying to help him unhex him. They fall back in love. I think it's a second chance romance. So I think all of these books sound really cute. I hope they're not too cozy. Like, I hope there's enough witchy stuff in them, but they all, I think, are pretty hyped up. So I hope that they can all live up to the hype. The last book that's kind of set on my TBR is The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. This is a thriller book, and it is the book club pick for the book club that I have with my friends. I have read all of Lucy Foley's other thrillers. I consider her maybe more of a mid-thriller author. I've liked some of her books more than others. I feel like they are starting to get a little bit repetitive, but this story seems to sound just about the same as all of her other books. I think this time it's taking place at a manor is the setting, and it's just gonna be a typical thing of we have a bunch of characters and it's all leading up to a death. And Lucy Foley's book always only have one death that we're leading up to, and we're trying to figure out who the person is that died and who killed them. So we kind of have those two questions running throughout the book. So it just really sounds very similar to her other thrillers, but I am of course intrigued. I love a murder mystery where you're trying to guess the killer. That always gets me, so hopefully this will be a good one and a good one to discuss in the book club. The rest of the books, as I said, I'm just gonna kind of mood read and see what I want to pick up, but I have put holds on, you know, all these from the library, so hopefully I can get to them all, other than this one that I do own, and that is One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware, another author where I've read her entire backlist, and another author I do kind of consider a mid-thriller author. I don't always love her books, especially recently, but I have heard, actually I've heard some good things and some bad things about this one, so we'll have to see how I end up reading it. but I think this is about a couple and they decide to go on this TV reality show. I do quite like reality show settings in books. I think it's been fun when I've read it in the past. And then it turns into some sort of like survival story where they're trying to survive on the island that they're on while filming. That's what I'm kind of worried about, is that there won't be enough of a mystery to it, but hopefully it's still enjoyable. Ruth Ware is always very good at the setting and creating like a spooky kind of mysterious vibe to her books. So I think at least that will be good. Then a horror book I would like to check out is Foe by Iain Reid. He has 3 books out, I believe, and I have read his other 2, so it just makes sense that I get to his 3rd one, Foe. And I just recently heard some good things from a friend about this one. Plus, I know it has an adaptation with Paul Mescal, so I definitely want to read the book so then I can watch that. Seems like it's about these 2 people who live on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and then people show up and like take the guy and say he's needed. Oh, he's just randomly selected to travel somewhere. I don't know, the description's kind of vague. It's kind of vague for a lot of these books that I'm reading, I guess because they're horror and mysterious. The girl that's left, she is not left alone. There's people who join her, I guess. Told in Reid's sharp and evocative style, Foe examines the nature of domestic relationships, self-determination, and what it means to be or not to be a person. An eerily entrancing page-turner, it churns with unease and suspense from the first words to its shocking finale. So that sounds good. Another horror book I want to read, I should just keep my laptop here to review them, but it's The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. And I heard a lot about this book a few years ago whenever it came out. I feel like mostly good things and just things that intrigued me, mainly because I think one of the main characters is a cat and that really interests me. But this description on Goodreads is really short, so I'll just read it. This is the story of a serial killer, a stolen child, revenge, death. Peach heard me say cats and she came around and she's scratching. In an ordinary house at the end of an ordinary street. All these things are true and yet they are all lies. You think you know what's inside the house on Needless Street. You think you've read the story before. That's where you're wrong. In the dark forest at the end of Needless Street lies something buried, but it's not what you think. So I don't know, just the way people talk about this book, I'm really intrigued on what the twist is, because I think people say it's very confusing until you get to the certain twist, which makes sense from the description. So really looking forward to figuring out what that is. All right, another thriller I want to check out is The Last Mrs. Parrish by Constantine. This is about a girl or woman who is basically trying to steal the life of this rich woman, like steal/ruin her life. I've read this kind of story a few times now, but I think this is more of like the original version of the story. So I'm just hoping that it's not old news. It's not things that I've seen before. I hope it still holds up. I've especially heard good things from Haley Hughes, who really talks highly about this book, and I really like her thriller recommendations. So I'm hoping this will be a good, quick thriller to read. Another horror book that I'd like to read is Maeve Fly. This is by C.J. Leede. I'm a little bit worried about getting into this one because I think it might be a little bit more of an extreme horror book, which I have not read thus far. Or I guess The Troop maybe was the closest thing I've gotten to. But I don't know, just hearing certain reviews about this within the last year or so, I just was intrigued to read it. It might be one of like the spookiest or most gruesome books on my TBR, so why not read it this October. It seems to be about a woman who works at Disneyland as like a princess, but then at night she is a serial killer. So that just sounds very interesting. It says Maeve ditches her discontented act and tries on a new persona, a bolder, bloodier one inspired by the pages of American Psycho. So yeah, I guess it's just about a woman like getting more and more unhinged. Okay, we'll check it out. The last book I put on my list is My Sister the Serial Killer. This is by, I don't know if I can pronounce her name, Oyinkan Braithwaite. This is basically, I think this is a shorter book, but it's about, and maybe is it young adult? Why did I think that? I don't think it's young adult, no, with the concept. So it's about a woman who randomly gets this call one day from her sister. She finds out her sister has killed someone. And so of course she's gonna help her sister get rid of the body, help her sister cover it up, right? Like, it's your sister. And then she notices a bit of a pattern that this keeps happening. And so she realizes, oh, like my sister's a serial killer. Just sounds very interesting. Again, I keep saying interesting, sorry, but this is one I've been hearing about again, I think for years. I think it's a pretty quick interesting read. I think it sounds pretty fun. As people say, I support women's rights and their wrongs. So we have a couple of those types of books on this list for sure. But yeah, that is my October TBR for 2024. Definitely leave me a comment below if you have thoughts on any of these books. And I hope you will subscribe if you have not already so you can see my review of these books at the end of the month, see how many of them that I get to. And I hope you guys have a great spooky season, a great October as well. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you guys in my next video very soon. Bye. Beach says bye.